even if it was just a £10 flight, you're entitled to a fixed sum in certain circumstances of over 200 quid per person compensation. Let me talk you through it. First of all, what type of flights qualify? Well, it must be a European Union flight, and that has a specific definition. It's any flight leaving a European Union airport, pretty simple, including of course all in the UK, or any flight arriving to a European Union airport, provided it's on a European Union carrier. So, if you're flying into Liverpool from American Airlines, it doesn't count. If you're flying into Liverpool on Dutch KLM Airlines, it does count. The delay itself needs to be more than 3 hours long. If it's not, it doesn't count. And crucially, we're talking about the time you arrive, not the time you take off. So if you take off 3 hours and 10 minutes late and you arrive 2 hours and 59 late, well, you're not entitled to any compensation. And the final criteria is it has to be the airline's fault. So if it's political unrest in a country, so you're warned not to go, that isn't the airline's fault. If there's a volcano that's erupting and stopping you flying, that isn't the airline's fault. Bad weather isn't the airline's fault. If the pilot has turned up late, that's the airline's fault. If the pilot's sick and they haven't got anyone to replace him, that's the airline's fault. If the plane is late taking off because the prior plane was late getting in and therefore they couldn't turn it around in time, well, the airline should have arranged the plane to take off on time. That's the airline's fault. It's pretty common sense, this, but you can find more definitions as well as template letters and all help on it, including how to find how late you were delayed on past flights at moneysavingexpert.com/flight delays. So now you know that you qualify for the compensation. What do you actually do about it? Well, it's quite a simple process of you just write to the airline requesting compensation under the European Union regulations, stating what your flight was, how late it was, and if you know what the fault was. If you don't know, you write anyway because it's for the airline to say to you, no, we weren't at fault. As you can probably guess, they often will try and get away with that. Some airlines, a couple of weeks later, you just get a cheque through the post, simple as that. Well, hey, other airlines will write anything. They will say such things as, no, it's more than 2 years ago, it doesn't count. Well, it does count back to 2007. They're trying to do an arcane piece of law that doesn't work, you need to fight it. They'll say it wasn't our fault. They'll say we don't follow these regulations. But the regulations are very plain. You are entitled to the compensation if you fulfill all the criteria. There are some people who get back letters offering them vouchers. Well, you're entitled to cash. So if they offer you vouchers, just go back to them and say, I want cash. The final problem is, of course, the airline just says no, and you know you're entitled to compensation. What can you do? Unfortunately, it does get difficult. You can go to the Civil Aviation Authority in some circumstances and ask it for an adjudication. Now, that isn't binding on the airlines, but it is good, strong evidence that you're right. In other circumstances, you're going to have to go to one of the European consumer bodies that deal with this, and it just depends where your flight took off and landed to. But effectively, they're not quite appeals bodies. They will just tell you, yes, we think you're entitled under the regulations to this compensation. But even with that, the airlines don't have to pay up. The CAA cannot force them. So that means you're left on having to take them to court under the small claims process. Now, hopefully you will win, but of course taking someone to court has its own risks. But don't worry too much. Most people don't have to go to court. It's a decision you only take once you've written to your airline in the first place. So don't let this step 3 put you off too much.